Hey everyone, welcome back. This is General Psychology, and I'm Ryan Keith, your professor. Every single semester, my general psychology classes have lots of different kinds of students in them. Some of you may be veteran students who have been at Santa Fe for years. For some of you, this may be your first college class you've ever taken, and you're right out of high school. And still for others, you may have taken some time away from school, and this is your first time being back in a classroom in a long time. Either way, in terms of making sure that everybody is successful, I find it really helpful to share some secrets of success. Now, these things aren't really secrets, but I've taught psychology classes for several years, and consistently, I see that the successful students do the same 3 things. And those 3 things are what I want to talk to you about today. If you want to be successful in this class, all you really need to do are these 3 basic things. They're going to sound really silly, but if you do them, you can be successful here. The first thing you need to do is get the book and read the book. This is your textbook. This semester I'm doing something a little bit different. Instead of signing a $100 or $200 or even $300 textbook for you to read, I've selected a textbook that is free for you to read online. You can find this textbook published by OpenStax, and that's OPENSTAX. You can find it to read online for free. You can see the logo right there. If you go to openstax.org/details/psychology. There you can read it online as well as download a PDF for free. On their website, you can also, if you want to, download a $5 iBooks version, which works well on your Mac computer, your iPhone, or your iPad. Or if you're like me and you like to have a hard copy to read, you can make your way down to the bookstore and buy a copy for a little under $40. Overall, I find it to be a much better deal than any other textbook I've ever used in a classroom. In this class, you're going to be expected to read between 1 and 2 chapters per week. And it's important that you keep up with the reading. If you wait until quizzes are due or until exams are due to start reading, you're going to have a really tough time. Now, many students are really going to want to rush and get that hard copy of the book so that you can do things like highlight as you read through. Well, I've got tough news for you. One of the great things about psychology is that we know how people learn. We know how people gather and store information. And one of the things that we have learned is that highlighters, they just don't go together. If you're like me, you used highlighters for years, and you never quite admitted to yourself exactly why you were doing it, but if you look deep within your heart, you'll know that what highlighters are really good for is for convincing yourself that you're working really hard and convincing yourself that you're really learning a lot, while instead what you're doing is you're thinking about dinner and friends and going to a movie, and you're making a wet page in a textbook, right? Walk away with a page that's wet and yellow, and you haven't remembered any of it. If you really want to remember the information in this book, and you do, you want to remember it well enough that at the end of this class, when you take your final exam, you know all the information, what you need to do is read the textbook in little pieces over the course of a week. Most textbook chapters are about 35 normal pages long. So what you want to do is split that up into about 5 pages a day, 7 days a week. I know it's a bummer to start reading as soon as you've finished a quiz, but if you start doing that, you're going to be solid. As you read each one of these small pieces that you get through before you're bored and falling asleep and not paying attention anymore, I need you to do something else. I need you to take notes. There is one thing that will help you remember the information from the book, and that is to take notes. When we talk about memory in this class, we'll talk exactly about why. But the basic premise is that the more effort you put into gathering the information and saving it into your head, the more attention you're paying to it, the more sensory systems you're using, not just your eyes, but your ears as you're reading things out loud to yourself and your hands as you're writing this information down, the better you're going to remember it. And if you take notes, not just copying them out of the book, but putting them in your own words, coming up with your own definitions and your own examples, you're pretty well guaranteed to remember everything. So in addition to reading the book, there are 2 other things you need to do. Next, you need to do what would in a normal classroom be attending class. In this course, we don't have a classroom that you attend, but there are a number of other things you need to do. Every unit, every 2 to 3 weeks, there will be new information related to your readings that I need you to digest. This information comes in the form of mini lectures like this one here, videos on YouTube or on TED.com, podcasts that I want you to listen to, or articles that I want you to read. These resources are not optional. This is the information that you would normally get in a classroom, but instead, I'm giving it to you here. In a lot of ways, I feel like you're the lucky ones, because instead of hearing me paraphrase in some unimaginative and boring way what somebody truly inspirational had to say, You can just listen to them on TED, or you can hear them in a podcast. If I give you something like this to watch, read, or listen to, it's because I think it's important and I think you need to know it, especially for an exam. So those are the two main things you need to do: read and come to class, which is watching videos, listening to podcasts, stuff like that. And you need to do them in little pieces over the course of the semester. The last thing you need to do, turn in your work. This third one seems to elude a number of students, and time and again, the students who have the hardest time in my class simply don't do that third one. Just turn in your work. Do your weekly reading quizzes. Do the weekly discussions you need to do. Turn in your critical thinking exercises and take your exams. If you do these things, you are in super solid shape, and you can do really well in this class. Let's take a few minutes and talk about the kinds of assignments you need to do and how you can do well on them. Every single week, due on the same day, at the end of the week, at the same time, on the same day, at the end of the week, you will have a reading quiz, which covers all of the information for that week's assigned reading. Your first reading quiz is based on chapter 1 in your textbook. You want to read the book, take notes, and take the quiz. Your reading quizzes will be 10 minutes long with 10 randomized questions in them, and you'll have 2 attempts to complete the quiz. If you're really smart, what you'll do is take the quiz at least a couple of days in advance of the deadline, have a hard time on it, and then go back and study the material you had a hard time on, and then take the quiz again so you do even better. These quizzes are a great way to make sure that you know where you stand in terms of course information. The second kind of assignment you're going to need to complete are online discussions. If you've ever looked on Facebook or any other online community, you've seen discussions where somebody posts things and other people respond to them. In these discussions, I will post a prompt. Sometimes the prompt is simply asking you to ask questions about things you're confused about, or sometimes I have an additional resource, a video, an article I want you to read, and I want you to reflect on that. In either case, by the end of the week when that discussion is due, it's your job to post at least 1 response of your own, and then at least 2 responses in reply to your classmates. I want you guys responding to each other and giving really good, deep, thoughtful responses. The more thoughtful responses, the ones that show that you've been paying attention, will earn much better grades than really brief responses or people who don't have responses to their classmates. So just make sure you get in and do these. In addition to discussions and quizzes, you will also have 4 critical thinking exercises over the course of the semester. In this class, critical thinking is a really important skill. We run into psychological information all the time, and sometimes it can be hard to tell what's good information and, well, what's just not so good, what's misleading information, or stuff that's really not accurate. Rather than relying on our gut, which can be wrong, or our beliefs, which have been taught to us, or our opinions, which we stick to, whether they're right or not, I want you to rely on facts, on evidence. These 4 assignments give you an opportunity to evaluate information, establish a position, and then explain that position using evidence, using solid information from the class or outside resources. Each one of these critical thinking assignments will be given to you at least a week, if not 2 weeks in advance of the due date, so keep an eye out for those guys. The last portion of your grade will be based on 4 exams you take over the course of the semester. Each exam will be timed and completed on Canvas. 3 of these exams are unit exams and cover the information from the previous exam. So the first 4 weeks of material, the second 4 weeks of material, etc. The last exam, the final exam, which takes place during finals week, is cumulative and covers everything in the class. Each of these exams is an hour long and contains about 45 to 50 questions. And each exam is available for a full week in which you may begin taking the exam. Unlike quizzes, you only get 1 attempt on each exam, but like quizzes, like discussions, I drop the lowest of each one of these things. Discussions, quizzes, critical thinking exercises, and exams. Forgot critical thinking. I drop your lowest of each of these 4, which means that if you miss something or if you just do really poorly on it, you don't need to panic. You're going to be in fine shape. Just do really well on the other stuff. If you have questions in this class, and most of you guys are going to have questions at some point, what I want you to do is get in contact with me. I know that an online class can be difficult because we're not seeing each other every single day, but we can still work together. I have office hours at the main campus. I have office hours also at the Davis Center in Archer, which is a really pretty place. Or if you want, because you might not be able to get to either one of these, I hold office hours online also. In my posted online office hours, you can get in touch with me through Skype, at my Skype handle, SF Psychology. You can get in touch with me through FaceTime with my FaceTime ID, rrkeith, that's rrkeith, at icloud.com, or we can always set up a time to talk on the phone too, because this is time that I'm available to help you guys out instead of in-person office hours. The last thing I want you to know is my number one rule for this class. It's my number one rule in every class, and that rule is don't panic. The first reason I don't want you to panic is that panic will not save you. We'll talk about panic later in the class, and no matter how bad things get, panic will never make it better. Panic will always make it worse. The second reason you don't want to panic is that there is no need for panic. If we're able to sit down and talk about how you're doing, talk about how things are going, you'll come to see that you're in much better shape than you really thought you were. So, work hard, do a great job, we'll have some fun, and I'll look forward to a fall semester with you guys on Canvas. Thanks in advance for all of your hard work.